I came across this article about a recent Gallup poll that was taken December 2nd through December 6th and involved 824 adults nationwide via landlines and cell phone. And the margin of error is plus or minus 4%. So, Americans named Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama as their most admired woman and man in the world in 2015, with Donald Trump earning the same share of admiration as Pope Francis. Hillary Clinton earned 13% on the list of most admired women and was atop the poll for the 20th time, 7 more times than Eleanor Roosevelt, which is quite hilarious, seeming as she's dealt with her server fiasco, Benghazi, and all these other issues that would really seem to complicate this poll if they had polled a larger number of Americans. And also, they don't really give us a good idea of where these people were polled from, the area, the county, if it's if it's democratically voting or Republican voting, or if it's an independent section. Now, Obama earned 17% on the men's side, his 8th time atop the list, tying for second with Bill Clinton. Isn't this ironic? But Eisenhower was the most admired man 12 times. I just think it's quite hilarious that even with all this talk of Donald Trump and how his messages are racist and prejudice, Islamophobic, he is still respected by 5% of that 824 adults, which should let people know that he does have business savvy. He does have a following. He is a negotiating genius. He can close deals. Now, I do think it's quite funny that the 2 biggest disasters in politics right now are somehow being allowed to be considered the most admired person in America? I mean, how can you admire Barack Obama when he won't even release his academic transcripts? How can you admire a president who has started this PC police and it is costing American citizens their lives? Secondly, we have a woman who has willingly and knowingly chosen to be silent when our own citizens were asking her for help. And she is the most admired woman in America out of 824 adults. Let's just talk about how this survey was conducted. Now, to have a headline like Trump ties with Pope Francis in U.S. poll for second most admired man in the world, how in the hell does 824 people decide who's the most admired man in the world? Or how does 824 people decide who the most admired man and woman in America is? It's unreal that these polls even get any kind of acknowledgement or any kind of press. Because as much hate as people are throwing on Donald Trump, the man still has 5% of the vote. And me personally, I don't support any candidate. It's way too early. But I see the hypocrisy coming from this administration, and particularly people who share his ideology. This hypocrisy, like he's this man who is so revolutionary and so progressive and forward moving. But how can a man be so forward and progressive moving when he set race relations back in this country at least 40 years? By his rhetoric. And a woman whose past is so jaded that it would take probably a 10-hour podcast just to expose the last 20 years of her political career in the political arena. And another issue I take with this poll, why are politicians the most admired people in this country? By those 824 people. I really don't understand that. There's so many philanthropists and there's so much great positive energy going on in this country. I'm not saying all politicians are bad and all they do is bad. They are good and they do some good. But there's so many more people who are morally on higher grounds than a majority of the politicians in this country and abroad. Not all, but there's a lot of good folks out there who young kids should look up to, follow their life story, see where they came from, and see how they got to where they were going. I don't think Gallup polls like this are even worthy of any kind of press. That is my opinion. That is why I decided to do this story. I think it's a joke that someone whose approval rating has been sliding for a while now is somehow the most admired man in the world and in America, frankly. So that's just my thoughts on this Gallup poll. Please comment. Love to hear your opinions. Subscribe. Thank you for listening to the Mixed News Network.